Hi, Alan Insul. I just wanted to say you look handsome as hell.
Well, thank you, Scott. With that, I have absolutely nothing to say. You've managed to catch a lawyer completely speechless, my friend.
Oh gosh. Well, right before this, full disclosure, you were like this. How do I look, man? How do I look? Okay. So, you know.
And you notice I had all my makeup people behind me, so
Yes, same here, same here. And you notice I shaved for you too, so
there you go.
not. So Alan, so nice of you to be here
Thank you
again.
so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Because, to me, this is it's not as much an interview, it's more just us talking like we're at a bar. I think eventually I might start sending over like a martini set to each person, and we'll shake it up and we'll have conversations over martinis.
It's a good way to get the real stories out, after a few martinis.
Absolutely. But Alan, so I got to tell you, I've known you for how many years now? It's got to be how long have you been part of Provisors? Like, is it over 10 years?
It's about 15, so you're
Okay.
making me a lot older than I am. I mean, considering we just both of us turned 21,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing.
Well, I joined, it was 17 or 18 years ago. So we've known each other for a long time.
Yes.
You're a highly respected real estate and business attorney. One thing I saw in your profile was showing, what does that mean? You see, an experienced attorney, I know what that means, with significant C-level experience. Why not A?
Because C stands for my true status in life. Because if I'm an A or a B, then
Uh-huh.
people are, I get a swelled head, and everyone's just trying to keep me in line. And if that doesn't work, I just say, "Honey, what do you really think of me?" And I'm immediately in my place.
That's very funny. But C, does that stand for, like, is that like a corporate level or?
Yeah, in the late mid to late 80s, there was an inevitable cycle in real estate, as you and I both know. And I had a number of business and corporate clients, and that was when telecommunications was deregulating. Old Ma Bell was being broken up, and a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of entrepreneurs were out there setting up companies. And I had an opportunity to acquire a long distance phone company,
Wow.
which I did in conjunction with some other people, and I was CEO, and we did some wonderful things with that. At the time, we turned it from a complete reseller into a facilities-based carrier, which for the audience means instead of just simply selling some other company's time on their equipment, we actually set up our own switching equipment downtown in One Wilshire and up
Mm-hmm.
north. And at the time, I think we had the third largest customer base for a California-based company. And we sold off to a company in Midwest, who
Mm-hmm.
then sold off to a company called MCI WorldCom,
Wow. Okay.
which you may. And the moral of that story was life and business is like musical chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you got to know when to grab the chair because the music's about to stop. And so
Right.
we did that, and it was a good opportunity. So I ran that, and I did a startup, which is the other side of the musical chair scenario,
Mm-hmm.
which show me an entrepreneur that tells you they've only done successful things in their 40 some odd years. I'll show you someone that's either a liar or incredibly lucky.
A magician.
A magician, that's right.
So what's interesting too is because obviously I do residential. That's my focus. I don't do any commercial because um, really that should be handled with that expert. But you do a lot of commercial real estate law as well, right? So the buy,
Yeah,
sell, financing, leasing, that kind of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I represent the buyers who want to buy, the sellers who want to sell, and the lenders who want to lend,
Hmm.
and landlords and tenants. And it's usually on the commercial side, but my experience goes back a lot of years. I mean, I cut my eye teeth doing mortgage banking for large commercial projects, so I
Uh-huh.
kind of learned from the ground up what lenders really were looking for, what borrowers were really looking for in their deals,
Hmm.
understanding what's a good tenant and a bad tenant. So that's really where I got my experience in doing that. But I've also done house deals too. I mean,
Hmm.
I used to be a litigator my first 15 or 20 years. So I spent my first 15 or 20 in the courtroom thinking
Hmm.
that I was the center of the universe because I'm a litigator.
Uh-huh.
And then I bought my first company, and we had I think at one point I had house counsel working for me because we were highly regulated, and we had 5 outside law firms, including some of the biggest in the country. And many litigators, and I realized looking at these litigators and going, you know what, you guys aren't the center of the universe. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Gosh, in my experience, because I just started doing expert witness work, and I was thinking like, what am I? Am I the biggest idiot in the world to say yes? I'm going to sit down, and I'm so confident in myself that a guy like you is not going to tear me apart. It's like I have to center myself to be able to stay calm and focused when someone like you
I'm
is
the sweet.
trying to rattle me.
I'm never. You know, what's really interesting, and I don't profess to be Mr. Maven in litigation, but I was weaned by some really good attorneys. One in particular, he was back-to-back trial attorney of the year.
Oh, wow.
And we used to represent General Motors and some big companies. And I worked at the Court of Appeals. I clerked for a really good judge who was part of. You remember the series Band of Brothers? Yeah,
Yeah.
he was one of the Band of Brothers. He's the guy who
Really?
tried. He's the guy who tried Sirhan. So I had some really good mentors in my life, and I learned. Litigation is not about bombast. Litigation is about making it about your client's case. If you're making it about you, you're making a mistake. So
Right,
that's
right.
yeah.
Well, there was one time it was interesting because I've been asked to be an expert witness like for years, and I said no, 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 because there was one time that I went to a case and I wasn't even supposed to be pulled in. It was a non-disclosure by a seller. I represented the buyer, and go in. It's to small claims, and the judge who knows the contracts really well, because a lot of these judges don't know the purchase agreement that we use. And he goes, did you fill out your TDS? I said, yes. Did you fill out your SPQ? Yeah. Did you fill out this? Yes. And then what did you say? I said this, this, this. And he goes, okay, why are you here? I said, sir, I don't know. And he goes, get out. So basically, they brought me in because the attorneys told them to, and they said, get out. Next time I go in, I'm thinking like, yeah, they're just going to send me out again.
Hey, baby, I walk on water.
Oh,
Well,
no, I didn't. This guy came in and I would have confessed to the Lindbergh kidnapping. It was like he was saying shit, and I go, well, sir, no, we're talking about the HOA docs and escrow, and I don't review those docs because they are legal documents and da da da. He goes, then what good are you? And I was like, I don't even know how to respond to that. How do you respond to that? So at the end of it, they let me go, of course, but because I really didn't have anything to do with it. But I thought, wow, what if? I mean, there was nothing against me, and he still made me feel like I was guilty. So
you know, a lot of people do expert witness work. I mean, first of all, you're tall, you're a good-looking guy, you got lots of experience, and you're authentic, and that's because you tell it like you see it, and that's an important thing to do. So
is there anything else nice you'd like to say about me since we're talking about me?
no, your check and fee that you sent me has been fully spent. If you want more nice things,
Okay, okay. Yeah, I gotta start putting coins in the machine if I want you to say more nice.
absolutely.
Oh,
Let's
that's
let's
fair.
let's give the folks what they, their impression of lawyers. Let's validate it.
Hey, by the way, while we're talking,
Yeah.
I write down, I type away titles of stuff. And the first one I wrote down is Alan Insul, Center of the Universe.
God, the next meeting we're at, I can just see I'm going to have to be prepared with counter
Yes,
barbs, or I'm going to be buried real quick. Well,
you gotta read it.
when it comes to the race to the basement, I'm always the first one there. So don't worry about it. I'm self-effacing. So
So let's do this. I'm already having a great time talking to you. All this missing is a martini, but we'll have to fix that at a different time. So I know you have tons of great stories. You have lots of experience, and so share some challenges that you've had.
yeah, one of the things, since I've been doing deals mainly, that's what I love to do for the last 25 years. Since I ran a company, I realized that that's much more fun than
Mm-hmm.
going to court. I kind of realize that, there are some things that never change in a deal. There's the basics of what you need to do, but what really changes is the dynamics of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
What's the economy like? Who's got the upper hand?
Mm-hmm.
Is the client sophisticated, not sophisticated? What is the time pressure, the gun, and part of the art of being able to negotiate, and you thought I was going to go there, but I'm not. The art of negotiating a good transaction is to be able to know where you're at with a client. And a really good result that just recently happened was a fairly large company that uses a lot of warehouse space. We're talking in the 100,000 square foot kind of range. And they had been in this facility for a long time. And there had been some discussions and disagreements about like unpaid property taxes. And we were coming at the end of the lease. I represented the tenant. But the market had changed. As you know, industrial has changed, even though you don't work in that area, right? A few years ago, you couldn't rent 1 square inch of industrial space. It was that hot of a market. But things have kind of cooled down, and my client had lots of opportunities. And so we were coming to the end of the lease, and sometimes landlords don't realize the world's changed, and the huff and puff approach maybe is not the right approach. So we came armed to the negotiations to renegotiate with a couple of opportunities that were just ready for some ink, and that changed some perspectives, and we managed to write a deal for my client. Yeah, we managed to write a deal for my client where not only did he get a more favorable rent than he would have someplace else, number one. Number two, he gained by not having to move a fairly large company to a new facility. So he had those opportunity costs. And the best part, this is the skill set of negotiation. The outside attorney negotiated, which house counsel was less than pleased with, a complete wipeout of all the claims for hundreds of thousands of dollars in property taxes. So that was an excellent result for my client. And it was just a matter of timing things and putting things in the right order and knowing when to use the brokers, with all due respect, Scott, and when not to. In that case, brokers wanted to make the deal. And in my case, we all wanted to make the deal, but it was how we used the leverage, which was, in this case, appropriately to use the lawyer as opposed to letting the broker negotiate the deal. So that was a real good result.
I love the fact that you basically came in armed with other properties that you could go to. That is brilliant. I love that.
And it's not like anyone. They were not hurting for money, and they could have certainly taken us to court, and we could have argued about stuff. But that's where the pragmatic comes in. It's much better to kiss and make up and do a deal. And landlord, as you know, every month that it's sitting vacant, they're losing rent. So you may think something's worth, $10 a square foot, but every month that you don't rent it out, you got to chip away at that $10 a square foot. So it made sense for everyone, and everyone was happy. And my client thinks I'm a hero, which is always good. I asked for a bonus, and he started to laugh and said, "I'll talk to you next week," and that was the end of the story. So. So that was a really good result. But you know what? It's a function of, I find as a lawyer, it's really a function of not making it about you. Listening to the client's risk appetite. Some of my clients, they've never met a risk that they haven't fallen in love with. And I have other clients that when they hear the word risk, they run to the corner and say, spend 30 pages to make sure I have no exposure. So it's really not about what I want, it's what the client wants,
I love it. Well put. And so I'm sure you have others. By the way, you want to know what that one's called?
No.
Armed to Negotiate.
Oh, that's really good.
I'm not messing around, Alan. I'm here to play. I'm here to have some fun.
Wow, I like that.
But the thing is, you're giving me the stuff. You're bringing it in. All I'm doing is just helping it go out of the park. That's all.
I'm dropping these pearls of wisdom, and I have absolutely no idea that they are actually either wise or pearls. First of all, if they were pearls, I wouldn't drop them. I'd keep them. So,
Well, tell me another story.
I'll tell you a real estate story, and this was still when I was litigating, and this is actually one of my funner stories. I'm going to use non-legalese. I had a client who I really, really, really liked. He and his wife had a house on a flag lot, and they were in the front, and in the back was this other house, and there was this driveway that, of course, as most people don't understand what a flag lot is. You think of a phone pole. where the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of the pole is where the main street is,
Mm-hmm.
and the flag is the house at the back, and the pole is the driveway, and my
Yep.
clients were right there. And for some reason, the neighbors didn't get along. My clients didn't get along with the guy in the back, who was an elderly gentleman, and shall we say, a tad cantankerous. And he had this habit of parking his car on the driveway right next to where my client's gate was to get into their house. You know,
Why?
yeah. So, and his wife was less. My client's wife was less than healthy, and it was not a good situation. And as most of these kinds of arguments come up, you and I both know it's, do I spend a fortune? Do I deal with the aggravation of litigation? I usually tell my clients, if you're thinking about litigation, go out, get drunk. If you wake up in the morning and you're still thinking about litigation, come back, because we have to talk about it, because it's rarely a
Mm-hmm.
good a good situation. But in this
Right.
case, he had a real need. So this is the fun part of this story. I go, all right, give me your title policy. Why do you want my title policy? The guy's driving up and down this driveway that's been there for 30 years. He's
Mm-hmm.
just parking in the wrong spot. Go to the judge. I'm sure the judge is going to agree with you. And
Mm-hmm.
just like your experience in the courtroom, it doesn't quite work out that way.
Yes,
And I
it
said,
doesn't.
you're probably right, but I'm insecure, so give me the title policy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Scott, you're going to immediately drop your jaw when you hear this. They did not come up with an express easement that was an exception.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't on the title policy. So we made a claim to the title company. We picked up a nice chunk of change, which funded the entire litigation with the guy in the back.
Because now he had to buy the flag lot, or he had
No,
to.
he was using a driveway
Uh-huh.
on an easement that was an expressly recorded easement to service the house in the back, but the
Mm-hmm.
easement did not come up on the title policy as being
Uh-huh.
an exception to the title. So
Mm-hmm.
they insured title to my client's property without there being an easement.
I see.
I told you were going to drop your mouth, and I
That's
just
not.
didn't say it the right way. Yeah, so my client picked up a nice chunk of change, and of course now they felt emboldened, shall we say?
Oh, I
and we
like
went
that.
and we went to court. The best part of the story is not even that. The best part of the story is he claimed that he needed to park there because he was elderly and he couldn't look and back, and he had to do this, and he had to stop before he gets to his house, and all these excuses. And he was quite elderly. And I said, you know what? There's no expectation of privacy. We're in a area that he's driving back and forth. Put a
Mm-hmm.
camera up on your, because he had a gate up there. Put a camera
Mm-hmm.
up on your gate.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it run. Sure
Uh-huh.
enough, we see him doing this.
Oh,
So,
every.
but so
Oh, that's.
between being funded by the title company and having this video and having him said, I can't do this under oath, it kind of led to a resolution that made everyone happy, shall we say.
Wouldn't it have been better? That's great. These are great stories. Wouldn't it have been better if the old guy just said, "Hey, look, can we figure something out? Because I'm having a difficult time," or maybe whatever, for whatever reason, if he would have just come and talked to them, because it sounds like your people were lovely, and
Ah,
so sometimes you just need to talk it out. I would think.
that's the key. I tell people when they talk about litigation, I go, look, most people, even your clients, they don't get to buy the house that they're in unless they run companies or they're well compensated in what they're doing.
Hmm.
They're usually couples that run businesses, or they work for someone and are compensated. The last thing in the world people want to do is get in the middle of litigation.
Hmm.
I've been both an attorney litigating, and when I ran companies, obviously we had litigation. There is nothing that doesn't drain your focus and your energy and your
Hmm.
attention more than litigation, even if it's in your favor. You have the costs, and you have the time that you have to spend with the litigation. And no
Right.
matter who you are, no matter how hard boiled you are, you're certainly going to have moments where you're going to have some anxiety and
Hmm.
nervousness about which way this is going to go. And I tell clients, I go, I know it's important, and I know you think it's only worth $1, and they think it's worth $2. sometimes it's good to give them the $2 or give them the $1.75, not because
Figured.
you want to cave in and they look appalled, like, how could you be so weak and insecure? And I go, how long will it take you to make up that extra buck if you don't have this on your head?
Mm-hmm.
And most business people say, you know what, got 10 deals on my plate right now. If I did any number of these things, it's a non-issue. And usually what winds up happening, most litigation,
Mm-hmm.
is the excuse my use of the word, it's the mano a mano. And I've had plenty of female CEOs
Mm-hmm.
that have been the mano a mano.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes the emotion as opposed to, is this really in the best interest of the company? Is it bet the farm litigation where I really need this kind of situation? And fortunately, knock on wood, since I've become a transactional lawyer and moved away from doing litigation, I keep my clients out of court. That
Mm-hmm.
and I rarely have someone come back to me. In fact, I don't think I've ever recall one time they've come back to me and say, "I wish I had gone to court. I wish you had not
Mm-hmm.
talked me out of it. I wish we had gone and fought about it." Most of the time, they go, "You know what? I've totally forgot what the case was about, but I made a ton of money the next year. I'm really glad I wasn't worried about it."
Right. And then, like you said, the amount of stress. Because I was asked to become an expert witness, and for years I said no. But now I decided to take a case, and I saw what was going on between two people, two sisters who weren't getting along, and I thought, like, all these years, it literally, I mean, you got to really center yourself because it made me, it was sad. And I saw that both sides were doing stuff wrong, and I was supposed to make a case for one side, and then I'd see the other person's side and think, why don't they just figure this out? Because in my mind, it could have been worked out pretty easily, but
Yeah.
all the anger and everything, unfortunately, that gets in the way.
Which is a good plug for us transactional lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
because I cannot tell you, if people really stop and think about it,
Mm-hmm.
most of the cases that are in those law books you see on the shelves or used to see on the shelves, they don't come from well drafted transactions where you have lawyers thinking through issues and
Mm-hmm.
negotiating so everyone understands what's supposed to happen. They usually come from friends, relatives, neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
acquaintances who you jump into a deal with, and it winds up going south, and then they run to the lawyer saying, well, he can't do that, well, she can't do that, and why are they saying that? That's not what happened. How could they lie like that? And of course,
Mm-hmm.
the other side saying the exact same thing to their attorney, and that's where the transactional lawyer comes into it. Do you have time? I give you one
Yeah.
specific story on that.
Yeah. Give me one more right now. Right now.
I right now, real quick, I'm a lawyer. I charge by the second, so I speak.
That's why I want you to hurry up. I
There
can't
you
afford
go. There you can't afford me. That's right. So I have a client who is extraordinarily successful and is known. He's known, and he happened to have a a drinking buddy. Speaking of martinis at the bar,
it. Mm-hmm.
that he did a lot of deals with this guy. He would find him deals, and we're talking about real estate that's on some of the most prime coastline in the world, from Southern California on down between here and La Jolla. Let's leave it as
Mm-hmm.
vague as
Sure.
that. And he found a piece of property, and my guy doesn't need the financing, and he said, okay, I'll buy it, you run it, and then we'll build apartments or whatever the heck the story was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm jumping up and down saying, we gotta document this. Of course, my
Right.
guy's going to come up with all the money and give him 50%. So the answer is, well, don't you think we should do a loan to him? And don't you think we should have a note back from him? And if he's
Mm-hmm.
going to run the deal, don't you think we should create a sandbox for him to
Mm-hmm.
run the deal in, so that if he steps over the box and you stop becoming drinking buddies, we know he's
Mm-hmm.
out of the box, and you can say, no, you can't do that. I'm going to take back my deal. And
That'd be your
if you
best friend.
and if
Yeah.
you don't and if you don't pay me, then I got this little piece of paper that says you owe me the money. And and
Mm-hmm.
and finally I prevailed, and we did this. And 10 years later, 10 years later, they stopped drinking. And 10 years later, the litigators had to get out there because they were arguing about certain things. And my guy came out smelling like a rose, because the judge is looking at this saying, what's the issue? It's real clear. You owe him the money, and you lost control of running the deal. You can't do this, and you owe him the money. So thank you very much. And, you know, That's planning in advance. I tell people
Sure.
you spend money and you hope you never have to use it, but if you have to use it, you're going to save a ton of money, you know?
Absolutely. I actually have a friend on another deal right now that it's an entertainment deal, and
The
she sent over an
worst.
agreement. Yeah, and we're friends. I've known her for 20 something years. And I said, look, I trust you and everything. I said, but because I do, because we're friends, let's just have someone look at it. And then someone from Provisors looked at it and they said, you can't sign this. It was the intentions of the deal were so right and so good. But I said, all I want is it for it to be what is customary. I want to be fair to her. She's fair to me. I don't want to get in the way of the deal. I'm in real estate now. I'm not in the entertainment industry. But if she wants to run with us, we just need to have understanding. So someone wrote it up, just like you said. We spent a few bucks. And at the end of it, it was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better because it'll protect us down the road too. And it gives us an understanding. And because she came back after reading and she goes, oh my gosh, this is so much better than
Yeah.
what I did.
Yeah.
But she says also that, can I just, now that this stuff has been brought up, would you be okay with this, this, and this? Because now we had an understanding. It was so great. And I said, yeah, 100%. That's fair.
Yeah.
Wrote it in, signed it, done. So couldn't agree with you more.
No one ever wants to talk about the what ifs because
Yeah.
in the beginning you're in love with each other and you don't think about, well, 20 years from now, will we still love each other? And how does that love change? And,
Mm-hmm.
having a roadmap and having discussed these things in advance, and that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of what a good transactional lawyer will get the clients to do. I don't make deals for my clients. I help them see the issues so they can decide what's important, what's not important, and then bring in the other side and hopefully come to an understanding and hopefully not have lawyers that kill the deals, which happens all the time. You know the deal killing lawyers.
Yeah, it's what's interesting because of the circle that we're in. There's so many what I consider to be really solid attorneys and
Mhm.
good people. But yeah, in general, it's the same with agents. It's
Yeah,
there's agents that make deals and work
yeah,
out deals and are trying to create a win-win and look at it
yeah,
like you've been saying. And then there are ones that want to just show just how freaking smart they are, and they kill deals all the time.
yeah. I've had attorneys that, and you're going to groan when I tell you this.
Yeah.
They say they're real estate lawyers, and I go, do you do transactions? Oh yeah, half my practice is transaction, and the other half is litigation. So, and so I have one particularly I'm not going to get into detail. It was a large transaction, and at the end, he did the typical, well, we're not going to close until you do ABC, and we got through it. And then at the end, I called him up and I go, "Hey, Joe." His name's not Joe. You were absolutely right. And he goes, about what? And I go, about your practice. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, you told me half your practice is litigation and the other half is transactions. And in the deal, half the time you were arguing and fighting with me, and the other half you were trying to do a deal. So you were actually true to form, and you told me exactly who you are.
Oh, that's perfect. What's interesting too, because we deal with a lot of similarities, even though obviously we're in a different sandbox. But just even a deal I was doing recently, working with an agent who's one of the top agents in the nation, really, and highly respected, really a stand-up guy. He was a
You mean
mentor to
you
me.
mean you mean I don't mean to interrupt you. Someone who's one of the best in the country other than you, who
Oh, you're
stands
you're
above him.
you're too kind.
The
This guy
the
really
the,
is something else.
the invoice is in your inbox already, so
Uh,
don't worry about
well, this isn't about me. I'm not the center of the universe. But this agent, though, what was great about him, I'll tell you his name. His name is Andrew Manning, because he's there to work it out. He's there to
it.
talk. He's there to be responsive. So when this could have gone south so many ways because of a credit that my buyers wanted, but everyone decided, how are we going to do this so that we don't hurt the seller if we don't move forward, and how do we work this out to try to make it work for everybody? So if we can together, beautiful. If not, we don't want to jeopardize their backup offer. And it was great to be able to have a conversation with a very smart agent
Mhm.
who was really doing. We were all doing our best just to really just accommodate the deal the best way we could, and to really honor the clients. And so, boy, it's nice and there's a lot of great agents out there. There really is, but this was pretty exceptional to work with him. So,
Happens. It
yeah.
happens. And,
But
and when
don't
you
ever
have, hmm?
if you have any referrals, though, don't give it to him.
No, why would I do that when I have the best? I'm looking at the best, so why wouldn't I do that?
Oh,